Hey everybody, it is me, Miss Simon. I can still say good morning everybody because it is not quite 12 o'clock yet. So good morning everybody. I am glad that you are going to tune in at some point to listen to the story. I love you guys. We left off at the end of chapter 14, and I put my glasses on because I'm kind of getting old and I have to check my hair out. You know how that is. Anyway, let's read the end of chapter 14, just a little bit of it. Hi, Jake. So, end of chapter 14, it ended like this. Ian, can you hear me? Called JJ. Get out of there, came Ian's voice from the inferno. JJ spun around. To where? There are only two choices. Either stay on the burning boat or take his chances in the vast, inhospitable, and terrifying sea. So this author does a good job at the end of each of the chapters, kind of leaving you hanging like, okay, so what's he going to do? He really only has two choices. And I'm thinking staying on a burning boat is probably not an option. Of course, jumping into the ocean is pretty much scary too. All right, so chapter 15, Monday, July 17th, 1825 hours. I'll hold it up so I can, so I can see. Okay. Luke paddled like a 4-year-old at his first swimming test. Just keeping his upper lip above water seemed almost impossible. This was crazy. He had a bronze badge from the Red Cross. Why was he so helpless? Panic and shock, he thought, and fear. He was trembling all over. Stay close to the boat. That was the first rule for a man overboard. But a widening pool of burning gasoline was spreading around the Phoenix, making it look like the waves themselves were on fire. Luke found himself drifting further and further from the ship. If he got separated from the others, only the fish would find him. Luke! It was a faint call from the gloom. Will? The voice seemed to be coming from miles away, although Luke was sure Will couldn't be very far. Will, are you okay? He shouted. No answer. Luke looked around, fighting hysteria. The sun was down. Detail disappeared against the incandescent orange of the fire. He saw nothing except... There it was, a flash of color a few yards away. He made for it, splashing wildly. In the pool at the Y, it would have been an easy 10-second swim. But here, a distant marathon. Will, Luke's voice was breathless, unsteady. Nothing. And then his flailing arms smacked right into a 6-foot piece of the Phoenix's cabin top, floating in the water. The corner glowed like hot coals. Luke used his weight to submerge the smoldering... Sorry, I keep playing with my hair, Jake. Jake, my day's been good. I've been reading this. Is the third time I'm reading the book, so trying my best. After a while, it's like, right? So I hope you guys are enjoying it. All right. So anyway, let me get back to my reading. Luke used his weight to submerge the smoldering portion. With a puff of steam, the fire was out. He hauled himself on top and lay back, gasping. Ow! His head banged against something hard. He rolled over to find himself staring at a steel gray smoke head vent. This was the galley ceiling. It must have broken off and thrown free when the explosion launched the stove overboard. That's why it was still in one piece, when most of the deck and cabin had been blown to toothpicks. Will, he called again with growing urgency. The Phoenix was completely engulfed in flames now. As he watched, a large charred section of stern broke off and disappeared below the waves. The rest of the schooner resettled herself, rocking to and fro into a new balance. Could there be anybody alive in there? Surely he wasn't the only one left. Will, he bellowed. Lisa, Ian, Charla. And a pause. JJ. He'd even be happy to see JJ at this point. Luke. It was Will. No question about it this time. Careful not to lose his balance on the cabin top, Luke rose to his knees. It was almost completely dark now. Then he saw it. A flailing arm. He stood up. Did he dare stand up? There, 20 yards away, someone, Will, was rolling in and out of the waves, clinging desperately to a mangled deck plank. Luke flung himself back on his stomach and began to paddle. He looked up. Will wasn't an inch closer. Here in the open ocean, the wave action canceled out whatever progress he could manage. To save Will, he would have to swim for it. Swim for it? Was he nuts? He was weak. He could hardly force his arms into a dog paddle. A few minutes ago, he'd barely made it to the cabin top 10 feet away. This was 5 times that distance, at least. And the same again, coming back, dragging Will, who might be hurt or burned. It was insanity. He'd drown the both of them. I can't hang on much longer, Will called. The decision was made. A slim chance was better than no chance at all. Luke threw himself off the cabin top and hit the water. He drove each stroke deep into the waves, fighting the sea in his own exhaustion. His eyes stung from salt, but he forced himself to keep them open. Can't lose him. Can't lose him. He tried to call Will's name and came up choking on seawater. Alone. Where was Will? Oh no. He'd lost Will and Francie looked backward. He could no longer see the floating cabin top. He'd given up his raft, his one chance at survival, for nothing. And then a wave broke, and Luke saw him, still clinging to the piece of deck. Will? Luke blurted. The boy's face was completely blackened with soot. Will blinked in amazement. Luke? In that instant, Luke realized he must look the same. He struggled to focus his racing mind on what was important. Can you swim? I'm not sure. Will seemed aimless and confused. I found a piece of wood. Hang on to it, Luke commanded. It'll help us float. Grabbing Will, Red Cross style. Oh, how he wished he would have paid better attention in that life-saving class. Luke started back in the direction of the cabin top. We'll find it, he told himself. If they didn't, they would both drown. Side stroke, shuttle kick. Will's dead weight threatened to drag him down. There's a cabin top floating up ahead, Luke managed to say between tortured breaths. His paddling arm throbbed with pain. Can you see it? Too dark, replied Will. He sounded sleepy. Try, Luke demanded, wasting precious strength, shaking his friend. It's around here somewhere. It has to be. There's nothing, insisted Will, a little bit more alertly. Agony pulsed from every muscle in Luke's body, from his cramped feet to the aching knuckles that locked onto Will's shoulder. It would be so easy to give up right now. There would be no disgrace in that. Who could have expected him to make it this far? The call to quit radiated from the very core of his being. Just let go, it seemed to say, and surrender to the waves. Wait a minute, came Will's voice. What's that? Luke kicked like he had never kicked before, as if he had reached down and opened a hidden supply of emergency energy. He screamed as he swam from pain and rage, but mostly from sheer effort. Whoomp! His head knocked against something. This is it, he exclaimed. Will, we found it. Luke pushed Will, plank and all, onto the cabin top. Then he scrambled on himself and collapsed, choking and gasping. The others? Lisa? asked Will. Luke could only shake his head. Nobody? They turned to face the Phoenix. It was a floating bonfire. White-hot flames covered every inch of the schooner except the very peak of the foremast. The bow, which had hung so low, was now pointed up like a cannon as water flooded into the ruined stern. They abandoned ship, said Will. They must have. Using the deck plank as an oar, Luke paddled alongside the doomed ship, looking for a path through the burning gasoline that coated the sea. Hey, came a voice. Over here. Where? Chorused Luke and Will. It was pitch dark now. The fire was the only light on the moonless night. Suddenly, Luke saw a faint glimmer of canvas struggling through the waves, and attached to it, Ian, Luke cried, drop that sail. We need it, Ian insisted, panting along. For what? Luke and Will almost capsized, hauling Ian onto their raft. The younger boy was ready to sink into the bottom of the ocean rather than let go of a large piece of half-charred foresail and a yellow rubber rain hat. Quickly, Luke rolled to the far end of the cabin top to restore balance. The raft wobbled dangerously for a moment and stabilized. Where are the others? rasped Luke. Ian shrugged helplessly. I was with JJ, but we got separated. What about my sister? Demanded Will. I thought she was with you." "She was." Will was frantic, "but she disappeared in the explosion." "And Charla?" asked Luke. "Charla, I mean, she was." Ian's eyes fell on the flaming hulk of the Phoenix. "Oh, gosh." With an audible groan, the burning schooner seemed to give up the fight before their very eyes. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the ship slid into the sea, following the angle of its raised bow. A split second before it disappeared, beneath the waves, a dark shape plunged off the tip of the foremast. It was a desperation dive, yet it was perfect. A graceful arc, and then the slim figure slipped into the ocean with barely a splash. It could have only been one person. "Charla!" they chorused. Pointing straight up to the sky, the flaming bowsprit of the Phoenix sank out of sight. CNC's schooner was no more. There was a mournful hiss as the ocean extinguished the blazing wreck. Suddenly, all light was gone, save for the few patches of burning gasoline. Luke picked up the plank and began paddling toward the spot where the girl had entered the water. "Charla!" "I hope she knows to splash around and make noise," Ian said. "Style counts for nothing when you're being rescued." They made their way through the gloom, bellowing her name. "Over here!" She was plowing through the waves in a textbook freestyle. Luke had to smile. "Maybe we can tie her to the raft and she'll tow us home." The light mood didn't last long. As they heaved Charlotte on board, the cabin top overbalanced, flipping them all into the water. Several more tries gave the same result. "It's too much weight," Ian shouted, treading water. "This thing won't hold more than 3 of us." "What are we supposed to do?" asked Charla, her voice shrilled with panic. "Go eeny meeny and the loser drowns?" "Nobody's going to drown," panted Luke. "You 3 climb one. I'll hang off the side." Charla was aghast. "Are you crazy? You're shark bait." "We'll switch every few hours," Luke decided. "It's only going to get more crowded when we find the others." He cupped his hands to his mouth. "Lisa! JJ!" But his calls went unanswered. And when the last of the gasoline had burned itself out, the cabin top bobbed and rolled in a silent world of limitless black. All right. So we're missing 2 people. Hi, Marin. And hi, my ex-Caven PS4. I know who you are because you always log in. All right. Anyway, here we go. Chapter 16. 2 more chapters to go. Tuesday. So we went from, let's see the date. I always forget the dates. We went from Monday, July 16th, 1825 hours, and now we're at Tuesday, July 18th, 0700 hours. Morning found the makeshift. So even if I didn't know what 0700 hours meant, starting with morning, I would obviously know, well, this is Tuesday morning. That must have been Monday evening. Okay. Anyway, sometimes if you don't know things, you just have to figure it out. Okay. The morning found the makeshift raft still adrift in the middle of nowhere. Luke and Will and Ian slept maybe I should try this again. Luke, Will, and Ian slept the sleep of the exhausted side by side on the tight cabin top. Only Charlotte, who hung on the water, was awake. She scanned the dawn gray waves, hoping against hope for some sign of Lisa and JJ. Nothing, less than nothing. No debris from the Phoenix, not even a toothpick. She checked Ian's National Geographic Explorer watch, a cheap mail order thing, but hey, it was the only thing that still worked. Gently, she shook Will's arm. "Will, wake up." "Lisa?" murmured Will. "No, it's me. Your turn for shark bait position." "It's the middle of the night," he complained. "It's 7 a.m., 2 hours, same as always." "No fair," grumbled Will, sliding himself over the side. The switch had to be made carefully to avoid flipping over, but after the long night, they were getting better at it. Charlotte squeezed herself gingerly on board. Before she lay down, she got her first real look at the cabin top. It was the galley roof, all right, just like Luke had said. The name of the Phoenix had been painted there. Now all that remained were the 3 letters, N-I-X. A rueful laugh escaped her lips. Luke opened a bleary eye. "What?" She pointed. "We're the SS Nix." So nix means like no, not happening. But anyway, that's what I remember when I was younger. That was something that they used to say when we were younger. Kind of putting a stop to something. It figures, he groaned. Come on, get some sleep. But as the tropical sun rose higher and higher in the cloudless sky, sleep became difficult and finally impossible. On the board of the Phoenix, the sails had provided comfortable shade. Now the blazing heat was almost unbearable. That's when Ian explained why he had risked his life to save a charred piece of the foresail. It's sun protection, he explained. We dip it in the water and then pull it over us. See? Luke had to admit it was a lot cooler under the dripping canvas. He repositioned the scrap of sail so it covered Charla, who was once again in the shark bait spot. What's the hat for? Asked Will. To collect rain, replied Ian. It's rubber so it won't leak. We can't drink the ocean water because of the salt. We need fresh water. Charla was amazed. How did you think of all this in the middle of a burning boat? Ian shrugged. I once saw this show on Shipwrecks on the Discovery Channel. The big difference between who survived and who didn't was thirst and sunburn. I'm laughing because remember Ian was the one who was sent there because he watched too much TV. Turned out him watching TV may save their lives. I don't know. I haven't read the rest of the book yet. I'm reading it with you guys. Gee, that's smart, commented Will. I sure hope Lisa thought of that when if his voice trailed off. Did anybody see her last night? Asked Luke. No, not Lisa, Charla said slowly. I remember JJ trapped on the foredeck, but once the sail caught fire, I lost him in the smoke. I was with him for a few seconds, Ian added. Then the mast came down and we got split up. But he was definitely okay. I heard him calling for me. Did you see him after that? Asked Luke. Ian shook his head. I don't think he went down with the ship. The heat was unbelievable. The fire was spreading. There was nowhere to stand. Sooner or later, he would have had to jump. Charla looked alarmed. Then why didn't we see him in the water, or at least hear him? And what about Lisa? There was a sober silence, broken only by the slap of the water lapping up the wooden platform. Then Will spoke. Oh, Lise, I knew you'd bust it. Luke gazed at him in concern. Will, you okay? That's the last thing I said to her, he replied quietly. She rebuilt the engine on guts alone, and that was a thanks she got from me. Nobody could offer a single word of comfort. Will looked out over the miles of empty sea. I should have been an only child. How many times had he said that? How many more had he thought it? And now? If Lisa's okay, he vowed, Automatically, his mind sorted through all the dozen of promises he might offer up. Suddenly, they all seemed so meaningless, a collection of tacky New Year's resolutions. He finally settled on the one he feared he might not get the chance to make good on. If Lisa's okay, I'll never be mean to her again. The end of chapter 16. Now we're on to chapter 17. Wednesday, July 19th, 0:30 hours. Night was the worst. The darkness closed in like an endless canopy of absolute blackness. With no moon, Luke could not even see Charla a few inches away. Ian, what time is it? Came Will's voice from the void. It's 12:30, Luke said irritably. We just checked 2 minutes ago. I don't really care about the time. I just wanted to see the light. He was talking about the tiny light on Ian's watch. Every time I fall asleep, I dream that I've gone blind. I need to see something. Try looking at the stars, suggested Ian from the water beside the raft. I can't sleep on my back. Luke was growing impatient. You might have noticed this isn't the Hilton. Make do. As Will struggled to roll over, he kneed Charla in the thigh. Reacting in shock, she elbowed Luke in the ribs. And as he jackknifed in pain, the edge of the raft dipped, dunking Ian underwater. The tiniest move had a ripple effect through the whole group. It was that close and uncomfortable. Sputtering, Ian checked his watch. 12:33, he reported. Do it again. I missed it, said Will. Although the temperature never dropped below 70 degrees, the night felt almost bone-chilling after the burning heat of the day. Taking turns in shark bait position kept the castaways soaked to the skin, and the 6-hour shifts of the water did little to dry them off. The seas had picked up, and even the smallest wave washed over the cabin top. They had tried again to find an arrangement where all 4 of them could sit on the raft at the same time. But after repeated dunkings and one real scare, the raft had almost bobbed away. They had decided that the 3 riders and 1 shark bait was the only way to go. Secretly, Luke didn't mind his shifts in the water, especially at night. While the air cooled down, the ocean stayed warm. It also provided protection from the wind. In fact, the only problem with shark bait position was exactly what the name implied: sharks. Dangling there, you were a sitting duck for any sea creature that wanted to take a bite. I would be so scared. They had seen fins cutting the surface around the raft, but Ian insisted they were dolphins. A shark fin is larger and more triangular, with a small slot near the bottom. The kid was an endless fountain of information that nobody wanted to hear. The great white shark could destroy this raft in a single bite. A real big specimen can swallow a whole person. Let me guess, said Will. They did sharks on National Geographic Explorer. Don't knock it, mumbled Luke. Those guys make one heck of a watch. I'm more afraid of the tiger shark, Ian went on seriously. They're pack hunters, and they can go into what's called a feeding frenzy. Yeah, it's making me not feel any better about being in the ocean. Enough, interrupted Charla, who was in shark bait position at the time. I don't want to hear another word about it until you're hanging down here like a worm on a hook. I'm with her. With the heat of the second day came thirst beyond anything they had experienced before in their lives. It was a familiar feeling at first, like the desire to hit the water fountain after a long, boring class on a steamy June afternoon. But then it transformed into something deeper and stronger. There was no water fountain. There never would be. Throats burned, lips cracked and bled. This reminds me of Long Walk to Water. Charlotte held the empty rubber hat. Did that show about shipwrecks mention what to do if it doesn't rain? She asked Ian. It'll rain, the boy promised. The other 3 noticed, though, that it was one statement with no backup research from television. There was hunger, too. They hadn't eaten for a full 48 hours. The hunger mingled with the thirst to produce a never-ending dull ache that gripped each survivor from head to toe. It was a pain that radiated lack of water, lack of food, lack of sleep, lack of comfort. As the afternoon progressed, a few clouds appeared overhead. The castaways cheered them on as if the Super Bowl were being played out in the sky above them. A cool wind picked up, creating a chop on top of the water. All right, Rain, croaked Luke. Let's see what you've got. We should trap water in the sail and drink it as it runs over the sides, Ian lectured. Get as much as you can while it's still raining because the hat won't hold a lot. Luke had his hands out, palms up, waiting for the downpour. It didn't come, or at least not to them. They could see it raining a quarter mile ahead of them, but they didn't get a single drop. There was genuine agony on the cabin top when the overcast thinned out and the sun broke through once again. No fair, Will groaned, addressing the clouds. Come back, where's our rain? That night, Luke hung over the side, drifting in and out of uneasy world of half dreams. You never really sleep in a shark bait position for fear of slipping off the raft and being lost forever. Suddenly, he heard a strange gurgling noise. It sounded like drinking. Will had edged his way forward and was now lying with his head over the side, swallowing greedily. Aghast, Luke grabbed him by the collar, pulled his face out of the water. Don't do that, Will. It's suicide. It was so dark that all Luke seemed to see were Will's eyes. They seemed dazed, glassy, and feverish. It's water, man. Who cares if there's salt in it? Luke shook him angrily. That salt dehydrates you worse than going thirsty. You might have just cut a whole day off the time you can hold out. Maybe more. No, it's okay, Will insists urgently. Listen, I figured out why we've never found Lisa and JJ. They've been rescued already. It doesn't make sense, Will, Luke argued. How could rescuers spot them and miss us? JJ was right all along, Will explained. The captain and Radford are watching us. The others were in trouble, so they moved in and saved them. They haven't saved us yet because we're doing okay. Okay, Luke repeated. You call this okay? We're starving, dying of thirst. One of us has to hang in the water or we'll all drown. Think. A shark could bite me into this minute, and the rescue boat would get here in time to save 3.5 people. There is no bigger trouble than what we're in right now. If there were rescuers out there, they'd be rescuing us. Will looked at him pityingly. Take it easy, Luke. Everything's under control. Don't panic. Luke stared back at him in growing horror. The kid was totally serious. There was only one explanation for this. Hunger, thirst, grief, and fear were causing Will Greenfield to lose his grip on reality. How long would it be before the same thing happened to the rest of them? Dun, dun, dun. So there we go. We'll see what happens. I hope that you enjoyed reading, and I hope you guys have a great day. I don't know, it's been raining here. It kind of looked like a monsoon out my window earlier. So we will see. I don't know what I'm up to today. See. I hope you guys have a good day. I miss seeing you guys. Remember that I love you and that I miss you and that hopefully we will see each other again soon. Thanks, Maren, for my hugs.